Hi there, I'm Tawny, and I'm 23, she, her. Let me tell you about my complicated relationship with my dad, Ivan. So, I have some serious daddy issues. I mean, who doesn't? This is, of course, due to the toxic behavior of my dad because he wasn't exactly the best father figure. As far back as I can remember, it was like our household was constantly walking on eggshells. My mom, Betty, and I had to endure emotional and verbal abuse from him, and it was just so messed up. I don't know why he was so awful back then, but as I grew up, I couldn't help but resent him more and more. I mean, come on. A daughter should feel safe and loved around her dad, right? But instead, I found myself rebelling against him. I'd argue with him even when my mom, who is the sweetest person you'll ever meet, couldn't say a word to him. Our arguments would escalate into screaming matches, and it got so bad that our neighbors started calling the police on us several times. Can you imagine how toxic that was? It was like living in a war zone. I just couldn't stand how he treated us and how he made my mom cry all the time. As I got older, I became more vocal about my feelings and called him out on his behavior, but it was like talking to a brick wall. He never listened or tried to change. It was frustrating and heartbreaking at the same time. I remember the first real time I stood up to him. I was only 12. Dad, I can't take this anymore. The way you treat us is just so wrong. What are you talking about, Tawny? I provide for this family and this is how you talk to me? It's not just about providing for us, Dad. You're always yelling at Mom and me for no reason. You call us names and make us feel worthless. Tawny, please don't argue with your father. Let's just calm down. No, Mom, I won't stay quiet anymore. He can't treat us like this. Oh, listen to Miss Perfect here, acting like she knows it all. You don't seem to understand that we have to treat each other with respect and kindness. I never claimed to be perfect. Tawny, please, let's not fight. Mom, you deserve better. We both do. You shouldn't have to put up with his constant anger and criticism. You think you know everything, huh? You're just a kid. I may be a kid, but that doesn't mean I can't see what's happening. You've been hurting us for years, and it's not right. Tawny, please stop. Let's just try to get along. No, Mom, I won't stay silent anymore. We need to stand up for ourselves. You will not talk back to me like that. I won't be silenced. We deserve to be treated with love and respect, not fear. That's it. Go to your room now. Fine, but I won't back down. We need to change, Dad, or I won't be a part of this toxic environment anymore. Despite all the pain and anger, there was still a part of me that yearned for a loving and supportive father figure. I wanted to have those special daddy-daughter moments that I saw in movies or with my friends. But with Ivan, it felt like an impossible dream. I remember another time when he punched me. I was 14. Dad, is that you? Are you drunk again? It's the middle of the night. Don't you have work tomorrow? Mind your own business, brat. I don't need you watching over me. Watching over you? I'm worried sick about you. Do you even realize how your drinking affects our family? Oh, here we go again. The little princess thinks she's so much better than me. It's not about being better, Dad. It's about you putting yourself in danger and hurting us in the process. Mom's always terrified when you come home like this. Mom's always terrified. Wow, poor Mommy. Terrified, huh? She's a grown woman. She can handle herself. It's you I gotta take care of. You're missing the point. She shouldn't have to handle this. It's funny, you know, how I have to take care of a grown man because he's just a man-child. Watch your tone, young lady. You don't know anything about life. I may not know everything, but I know this isn't right. You're hurting yourself and hurting us too. You think you can lecture me, huh? You're just a spoiled brat. I'm not a spoiled brat, Dad. I'm your daughter, and I deserve to have a father who cares about us and doesn't put us through this pain. You better watch yourself or you'll regret it. I won't back down, Dad. You need help, and I won't stop until you get it. We all need a better life than this. That's when he lunged forward and punched me square in the face. I immediately felt the blood pouring out of my nose. Even though I was in pain, I stood my ground. Just go away, Tawny. You don't understand anything. No, Dad, you don't understand. You're not alone in this, but you need to face your problems instead of drowning them in alcohol. You're sick and you need help. Big yikes, am I right? Well, unfortunately, this was the norm for our family, and it sucked big time. I felt like I had to grow up quickly, which no child should do. But one day, everything changed. It was a random Sunday afternoon when I was 15, and my mom and I were playing cards on the kitchen table. Out of nowhere, there was Ivan, my father, looking all distraught, holding a duffel bag in his hand. Honestly, I didn't feel any sympathy for him at that point. I pretty much hated him by then. I didn't even call him Dad anymore. It was just Ivan. He seemed sad when he spoke, saying he had to go on a trip. I couldn't help but spit out something spiteful, telling him I didn't care where he was going. But of course, he ignored me. Mom asked when he'd be back, worried about the rent that was due soon. Ivan said he'd be back by the end of the week, but that was the last time we saw him. A week passed, then 2 weeks, and still no sign of him. The rent was due, but he wasn't answering any calls. Mom, my grandma Harper, and my granddad Frank tried everything to reach him, but nothing worked. 2 weeks turned into a month, then 2 months, 6 months, and then a whole year, and still no sign of Ivan. Mom cried a lot during that time, struggling to pay rent on her own. I felt so bad, and I hated his guts even more because of what he was doing to my poor mother. We got kicked out of our place eventually, my childhood home, and since Mom didn't have any parents, Grandma Harper and Granddad Frank were kind enough to let us stay with them. Thank God for that, am I right? At the beginning of Ivan's disappearance, my mom filed a missing persons report, but Ivan was never found. Everyone assumed he was dead, and we even had a little funeral for him, even though there was nothing to bury. It was tough for everyone, and even I found myself crying sometimes. 8 years had passed since he was last seen, and life went on without him. 8 freaking years, y'all. Life had been a roller coaster ride during that time. But you know what was amazing? My mom, Betty, finally got her groove back. It was like she was blossoming without that deadbeat dad dragging her down. After my dad disappeared, it was tough at first. My mom still held on to the hope that he was alive somewhere out there, but even if she was right, we eventually had to accept the reality that he might never come back. It was hard, especially for my mom, but slowly we picked up the pieces and moved on. She threw herself into work and started focusing on building a better life for us. She worked tirelessly to make ends meet, and I admired her resilience. She refused to let his absence define us, and let me tell you, it wasn't easy for her, but she kept pushing forward. It took some time, but she found her joy again. She started making new friends and rediscovering old hobbies. I could see her smile more often, and that made my heart happy. I was just a kid back then, but I knew she deserved all the happiness in the world. But then, life sucker punched us again. After 8 years of being without Ivan, we lost Granddad Frank, my grandma's rock, in a terrible car accident. It was like a nightmare. and we couldn't believe he was gone. That drunk driver turned our lives upside down, and we were left grappling with the pain and emptiness. Grandma Harper, well, she was hit the hardest, losing her son and her husband within such a short time. It felt like her world shattered. She was like a broken puzzle, and we didn't know how to put her back together. Mom and I tried our best to be there for her, but grief is a beast that's tough to tame. In those dark days, all we had was each other. Anyone who's organized a funeral, especially on a budget, will tell you it's a whole roller coaster of emotions. We were all dealing with Granddad Frank's funeral, trying to get everything organized while struggling with our grief. It was tough, but thank goodness for the community who stepped in to help us through it all. So picture this. The funeral was underway and we were trying our best to keep it together. You know, be strong for Mom and Grandma Harper. But then, out of nowhere, it was like I saw a ghost. Seriously, my heart stopped for a second. There, coming towards us, was none other than my long-lost, supposedly dead dad, Ivan. I couldn't believe my eyes. I mean, it had been years since he vanished, and everyone assumed he was gone for good. But no, there he was, looking like a complete wreck. I honestly didn't think it was him at first. I thought it was a homeless person who maybe lost his way, but nope, it was Ivan. It was shocking to see him like that. So thin, with a dirty beard and yellow teeth. It was like looking at a total stranger. My emotions were all over the place, and before I knew it, a scream escaped from my lips. I couldn't help it, you know? It was like all those years of hurt and anger just erupted at once. And guess what? My mom and grandma saw him too, and they were just as shocked as I was. Well, let me tell you, that sight was too much for my poor mom to handle. She fainted from the shock, and I had to jump into action, trying to revive her. It was all so overwhelming. Thankfully, Grandma Harper stepped in and started fanning her, but I was left standing there, facing my dad after all those years. It was almost like I went into autopilot, though, having to be tough and stoic, just like all those years ago. I could feel the anger and confusion bubbling inside me, but I knew I had to stay strong for the sake of my family, so I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and walked up to him. It was like a mix of relief and anxiety washed over me. Part of me wanted to run away, but I knew I had to face him, confront him about everything. Ugh, it was such a mess. I couldn't believe my eyes, and all those emotions were just bubbling inside me. I took a deep breath, and with a trembling voice, I demanded answers from him. I mean, he disappeared for 8 freaking years, and now he suddenly shows up out of the blue? Like, what the hell happened? But of course, he had to be all mysterious about it. He said it was hard to explain why he was gone for so long. Hard to explain? Seriously? I was so fed up with his games. I pushed him, yelling at him, trying to get some kind of response out of him. But all he did was shrug me off and act all aloof. And you know what he said? He dared to tell me that he didn't owe me any explanation. After everything he put us through, he didn't feel like talking to me because we hated each other. Like, come on, that's not an excuse. I wasn't about to let him talk to Mom and Grandma without spilling some answers first. I told him he couldn't just waltz in and act like everything was okay. But he just brushed me off and said he was there for the funeral, as if that was all he needed to say. Ivan completely disrespected our boundaries and pranced on down to where the funeral was being held, and that's when I saw that my mom was thankfully awake again. She was sitting up on the grass, drinking water and being fanned by Grandma Harper. Things were getting tense, and the crowd of people at the funeral started whispering and looking at us. I was so embarrassed, but I tried to keep them at bay, asking them to give us some space to deal with our family drama. Thankfully, they all dispersed, with a distant cousin of ours directing them to Grandma Harper's place so that they could have some refreshments. Mom, who was always the sweetest and kindest person, looked at Ivan like she wanted to murder him. I had never seen her like that before. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Mom looked at him, her eyes full of anger and sadness all at once. She said, "It would have been better if you didn't come. Why are you here?" And you know what he said? He had the nerve to claim he heard about Granddad's passing and wanted to pay his respects. Like, seriously, after all this time? That's the best excuse he could come up with? Mom wasn't having any of it, though. She saw right through his BS and called him out on it. "You know that's not true. If you cared, you would have come home 8 years ago like you promised. Hell, you could have come home literally any time before now. What the hell is wrong with you?" She didn't hold back. And honestly, I was so proud of her for standing up to him. But Ivan was a mess, stammering all over his words and fidgeting like crazy. It was like he couldn't stand still. And then I noticed something off about him. He was scratching himself like crazy and his eyes seemed all distant. It hit me that he might be on drugs or something. Without hesitation, Mom asked what we were all thinking. "Are you high right now?" She wasn't holding back any punches, that's for sure. Ivan tried to come up with some explanation, saying a lot had happened in the past 8 years and that he got mixed up with the wrong crowd, but he assured us he was doing better now. What a load of crap. Mom chuckled bitterly and then just broke down sobbing. I wanted to hug her and tell her everything would be okay, but I was so angry at Ivan. I couldn't help myself. I started yelling at him, telling him to go back to wherever he came from because no one wanted him there. But he was trying to ignore me like he always did. But I wasn't about to let him off the hook that easily. I kept on yelling, and it seemed like I was impossible to ignore because of how loud and angry I was. "Get out of here! You have no right to be here! Let Granddad rest in peace, for God's sake!" "Why are you making such a big deal out of this?" "Because you abandoned us. You left us to struggle, to deal with everything on our own. And now you dare to show up here like you're some kind of hero? You're a joke, Ivan." "I had my reasons." "Reasons? What reasons could justify leaving your family behind like that? We needed you, Dad. But you were too wrapped up in your messed up world to care about us." "I don't have time to deal with you, kid. Step aside. Mom, look at me." Grandma Harper had been quiet this whole time. She had a blank stare and was looking off into the distance, furrowing her brows now and then. I placed my hand on her shoulder to comfort her, and she responded by sighing and leaning in, as if she was snapped back into reality. "He's here for the inheritance." "Mom, please look at me." "Ivan, you are the scum of the earth, you know that? You're worse than the sewage." "Mom, please." "Tawny, please tell this man that I want nothing to do with him. I have nothing to say to him." Ooh, burn. Even his mother didn't want to claim him. "I just need to get my inheritance and then leave. Those friends I told you about, well, turns out I owe them some money and—" "That's none of our concern, sir. Please leave. We are grieving." "Come on, Mom. You're gonna act like you don't know me? Seriously? I don't know who you are. Please leave before we call the police." "Mom, it's me, Ivan, your son." "I don't have a son. My son died 8 years ago. I don't know who you are." "I'm not messing around, Mom." "And we're not messing around either, you bozo. Get away from this place." "I'm not talking to you." "But I'm talking to you. All my life you've ignored me, and now you're getting a taste of your own medicine." "Shut up." "Mom! Mom! Mom, these people don't play around, okay? Just give me the money and I'll come back, I promise. I'll explain everything, okay? I'll explain everything to all of you. Just please, give me the money. I need the money. I need the money, goddammit! I need the money. Give me the money. We all just stood there looking at him with blank expressions on our faces. Ivan's pleas were getting more desperate and louder, but it was falling on deaf ears. He even dropped to his knees in front of Grandma Harper, begging her to listen, but we didn't pay attention to his cries. I need the money, he kept repeating, as if that was supposed to justify everything he put us through. But after all those years of abandonment, his words meant nothing to me. I was done listening to his excuses. I grabbed a shovel that was nearby and I whacked him in the head with it. He was knocked out cold. Thank you for that. No problem. His cries were getting on my nerves. You want to know the funny thing? Since he got here, he hasn't even taken one look at his father's grave. I don't know what happened to him, but he looks awful. Now the outside is reflecting the inside. Do you think that these friends of his are going to kill him if he doesn't get their money? Probably. I mean, if he's doing drugs, he must be doing some other crazy crap that would get him killed. Do you think we should give him the money? Why don't we ask Granddad? Hey, Granddad, should we give Ivan the money? Say nothing if the answer is no. My mom and Grandma amused me, and we all intently listened for Granddad's answer. Of course, there was silence. Well, looks like we got our answer. What a sad and pathetic man. I'm glad Frank isn't here to see this. Let's go, you guys. We'll find a police officer who's patrolling the area and tell them of the hobo who was near the grave. And with that, we left Ivan there and proceeded with the funeral in our home. I don't know what happened to my dad after that, but I never saw him again. I'm sure he's dead, though, for real this time.